This is Deadpool Negative, and I'm going to do another review for you. This time it's about a comic book. I have a lot of comic books, so I guess I'll call this stuff from my pile. And I have this. I've been working on this review for a little bit. And before I start, this is a review of a trigger warning. This is a review of a Mark Millar comic that is not exactly positive. Now, I know Mr. Miller is not in favor with people lately on comics Twitter. I don't care about that because I'm not on comics Twitter. But I want you to understand this is I've worked on this interview. I've worked on this review for a little bit before he just. I mean, I don't like some of the people he's being nice to, but I don't. But that's neither here nor there. This is not a slam review meant to go after him for committing thought crimes. I just want to make that certain in case anybody watches this. Anyway, in case anybody's thinking of that. Anyway, this is out of print, but it's actually quite fascinating. It's called Marvel 1985. This was a 2008 series that written by Miller and kind of in the wake of Civil War, which I thought was one of the biggest creative disasters in Marvel history, but also sold a ton of copies, so that doesn't really matter. I've always had a real issue with Miller in total. I think he's written some incredibly entertaining books. Superior is one, Empress is another. But I also think he kind of views things entirely through a lens of satire. And I don't like satire much these days. That's one of my issues. 1985 had an interesting history. When it was announced, Miller and Marvel had announced it was going to be done with some photorealistic artwork. They were going to use photos and photorealistic artwork to depict a kid. Basically, the premise is superheroes falling into the real world of 1985. It's another dimension. Um, so somewhere along the production process, I think it was taking too long, or it just wasn't looking good. I mean, we only saw one piece of artwork, and it was just meh. I mean, I'll give you an example. It was meh because you just I had the page right here on me. They just showed a picture of the Hulk standing there, and it was fine. The way the premise initially, it was like the kid. What the premise seemed to be like, this kid in a small town was suddenly seeing the superheroes that were in his comic circa 1985 Marvel. And the way it seemed like, is it real? Is it fake? It sounded like Miller's own riff on Robert Cormer's I Am the Cheese. That's how I read it. It turns out to be something very different from that. And I'll explain in a moment. But this picture, it looks so static and lame. And so they decided to, pay whoever was working on the photorealistic art for their time and hire Tommy Lee Edwards to draw it. And uh, we get this amazing shot of this kid seeing the Hulk. I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work. So, what is the story about? It takes place in 1985. This kid named Toby in a small town named Toby Goodman in a small town. He finds himself just reading his comics, having a lot of fun. He's dealing with depression because of his parents' divorce. His father is kind of a slacker type. He doesn't is basically his father's like never really grew up. He's a musician. He sleep around with younger women. His mom is currently getting close and is married to a guy, getting close with a guy who, is responsible and everything. It's a typical. It's very 1980s. The parents, the kids dealing with depression because of his parents' breakup. It's very cliche. And something happens. His father's friend's mother dies. And the friend of his father, he's been institutionalized for several years for reasons that are explained later in the story. And what happens is, after this, supervillains start appearing in the town. The kid sees supervillains. He sees the Hulk briefly. It's, you know, something's happening. They keep coming into town, and what they do is kill people. That's kind of it for like about 3 or 4 issues. It's just I mean, there's a reason they're killing people, but that's kind of it for like 3 or 4 issues. And it's this, like scene after scene of the kid trying to explain to people what's going on. The mother, telling him that he's crazy and stupid. The father saying, "Well, let's check this out." Um, and the kid trying to avoid getting murdered by these supervillains. And it becomes quite apparent that these supervillains are being controlled by some sort of entity or some sort of person. Well, I'll just say the institutionalized friend of his father has something to do with it. And eventually the kid has to find his way to the real Marvel world. And the problem and 1985 has some beautiful artwork by Tommy Lee Edwards. But the problem with the story is it just doesn't have enough substance to sustain 6 issues. Now, 6 issues of Tommy Lee Edwards art is, pretty great, but there's not much to Toby or his mother or his father Jerry. Like, Toby's been out of shape about his parents' divorce. The mother's like a well-meaning person, but she's all about responsibility. Jerry is a fuck up, but he also means well, and of course this. I don't think Mark Millar himself is a misogynist. I think he believes a good chunk of his audience is, and he kind of just throws in this. Basically, the two mother figures in the story are either, without exactly spoiling what happened, like Toby's mother is just kind of typically naggy, and she really doesn't get a chance to be actually nice. She just complains about I mean, she's active. She's active in helping Jerry, figure out, what's going on. But she's always the stern mother figure. Doesn't really get any warmth. She's not a bitch, but she doesn't get any warmth. And I thought that was a little unfair. And there's also another mother figure in the story, and without giving anything away, she's the cause of all that's going on. She is essentially responsible for everything that had happened because she didn't and it's like, girls are kind of a bitch, and it's just, yeah, I get it. It's very much trying to just fit into that frame of mind where you're just angry at, the adults in your world, but you're especially angry at the female adults in your world. And I think Millar is really being sinister. He's just pandering. And for how little substance the plot is, I just wish there was more. He could have been a little more nuanced. There's one really well written scene where Jerry wakes up, next to a much younger woman, a cop, and he has a conversation with her, and it's like the most naturalistic scene in the book. And it makes Jerry almost an interesting character a few minutes instead of a type. And the actual female cop he's talking to is a fun character, but she kind of disappears for the rest of the book. And when Toby finally finally figures out a way to get to the Marvel world, the whole thing is kind of just rushed. And of course, the end of the story, we get like the typical son disobeys his mother's wishes little twist. But on the other hand, at the time, Mark Millar liked to do all these stories where there'd be a twist at the end, which would make everything so dark and sinister, like American Jesus and Old Man Logan. But the end of Marvel 1985 is fairly positive. And in fact, Marvel 1985 does tie into an Old Man Logan in certain ways, again, which I won't reveal because, I don't want to spoil it. That's not what I'm doing. If I want to spoil it, I'll mark it spoilers. But it's an entertaining book, but it's kind of a trifle, and it's like it makes me feel the way a lot of Mark Millar books make me feel. They make me feel like I'm fed, but I want more. I want something more interesting than that, and it's just not there for me. Anyway, but I think it's currently out of print. I mean, it's in the Mark Millar Fantastic Four omnibus. But I mean, if you're looking for I should talk more about this Tommy Lee Edwards art. I mean, it's just the expressions. He's such a fantastic artist. like just here and these and this cover and just the way he am like just I just love it. I mean, just this just wonderful. I just wish the story was like just a little more memorable. Anyway, that's the first episode of Stuff from My Pile. I'll be reviewing more books sometime soon, and I hope you enjoyed this one. And like the bell for notifications, click and subscribe, whatever they say. Talk to you later.